All right, so from political change to climate change, heavy hitters meeting in Azerbaijan right now, where the United Nations Global Climate Conference is well underway. You see the people there in the chairs. This is the number on everybody's mind today. Look at this, 1.5 degrees Celsius. So what does that mean? That's the threshold that countries included in the Paris Agreement vowed to stay under. But as you can see here, the global temperature is closing in on 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so activists are now sounding the alarm, and they're doing it with that world community there. Everybody's sitting in the same room. So let's bring in CBS News national environmental correspondent David Schechter, and some would say my doppelganger, live to the stream. Good afternoon, David. It's nice to have you with us. So marching orders here for the conference to really put a halt to global warming. What are the stakes right now?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit on it there. We are at a crossroads for climate change. The nations of the world simply have not done enough to reduce their emissions. Many have done a lot, including the United States, but just not enough. At the same time, we've got these incredibly high temperatures, going to break records this year, broke a record last year. We got fires, we have drought, we have rising sea level. We've got these fires in New Jersey that we're talking about in November. And now you have a president-elect, Donald Trump, who's coming in who says climate change is a hoax. Put all that together and bring all those ideas and thoughts together at this COP29 conference, and you've got a pretty big cloud hanging over it.
Right. And, you know, we know he pulled out of the Paris Agreement before. He's coming in, like you say, right. He calls it a hoax. I would imagine that these have to not only be conversations about what is happening, you look at that 1.5 degrees Celsius, but also conversations that are introspective, kind of like our last guest talked about, and conversations that are strategic.
Well, at this conference, for example, the nations of the world are to come together and say, here's what our country can do to reduce our emissions, and here's our plan to do that over the next 5 years. And that's a lot of work. This has happened before, and countries haven't met their promises there. But the U.S. is going to come in under the Biden administration and say, this is what we think we can do. But we're talking about a lame duck presidency here. And so while it might signal that the U.S. is capable of doing something, these other delegates are going to look at the United States and say, well, we should really be listening to what President-elect Trump is going to say, because that's what really matters, and that's what we're going to need to be dealing with. That sends a chill, as I mentioned, but it doesn't stop the other countries from continuing to make their own pledges and think about climate change. This is a global problem with a global solution. And so those are the conversations that are going to be happening.
David, you can't talk about climate change without the push for zero emissions, or at least reducing emissions. And you can't have that conversation without talking about electric vehicles. You can't talk about electric vehicles without talking about Elon Musk. He is now highly regarded in the Trump administration. We don't know what kind of a role he's going to play. There's a little bit of a quagmire there. Elon Musk, electric vehicles, sure. Elon Musk, the power broker in the Trump administration. How will that play out to the people who are talking about climate change?
I like how you connected all those things.
There's a diagram there somewhere, I know.
So it's so, his business, big part of his business, electric vehicles, has benefited so greatly from what's happened under the Biden administration with what's called the Inflation Reduction Act, to a poorly named law that really was a climate law. One of the things in there was a $7,500 tax credit for American families to buy an electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, and benefited greatly from that. Tesla did, and all the automakers. And there's other provisions in there that are really helpful to his business. And then you got Trump, who calls all that the Green New Scam. What is Musk saying to Trump about climate change, and will that change his mind, or at least tampen down some of the instincts to just gut a lot of this legislation and to vacate world leadership? We don't know, but it really does add an interesting element to the conversation for sure.
Okay, David Schechter, if we're going to start looking like brothers again, I got to either wear a black tie or you got to get a haircut, my friend. I don't know. We'll figure it out offline.
Man. You got to do it.
Nice to have you on the stream today. Thank you so much.